Everybody, and welcome to our national Q&A call. Today is the 6th of December 2022. It is 9:02 a.m. Pacific, 12:02 p.m. on the East Coast. We're going to get started right now with news you can use. Today's topic is going to be commercial real estate. We get people asking all the time about commercial real estate. Is it a good investment? And if so, how should I enter into that piece of the business? I can give you the answer in less than a sentence. Don't do it. Stay away from it. It is fraught with a lot of danger. There have been very few, just to give you an example, in my career of investing, which spans several decades, I have made a ton of money on commercial in specific areas, and I've lost a lot of money in most areas of commercial. And the reason for it is you have a lot less control than you do over single family houses. But today, we're going to pick on one particular aspect in particular, and it is the aspect of commercial office buildings. You may be tempted right now to go out and acquire a commercial office building, but here's the facts. 2019, end of 2019, about 3 years ago exactly, the occupancy rate of all the office buildings in the United States collectively was a little over 95%. So there was less than 5% vacancy in all of the commercial office buildings in the U.S. Today, as we sit, December 2022, 3 years later, it's less than 47%. The number has dropped dramatically, and as leases mature and expire, tenants are not renewing. Why is this? Well, COVID started the ball rolling. The work from home movement had actually been going several years earlier than that, but it really exacerbated that. And now everybody wants to work from home. Nobody wants to go to a big office building. It's causing big, huge, severe problems for certain cities and certain counties in the U.S. right now. New York, San Francisco, for example. A large chunk of their tax revenue came from things like occupancy tax for hotels near office buildings, the taxes that they'll charge for property taxes on the office buildings, all of the revenue taxes that a city would get for businesses that surround an office building, coffee shops and restaurants and things. Of course, when an office building occupancy goes down, all of the ancillary businesses around it also drop. And then on top of that, just the general economic decline that comes from leaving a core of a city empty. And what happens obviously is as things completely abandon, you have ghost towns, maybe a fringe element will tend to move in there. There's a lot more violence, there's a lot more crime, and that causes the city or county to have to spend more in police efforts, fire efforts, those kinds of things. And so you've got literal areas, and I've, my second home for years has been in Orange County. There are big chunks of Orange County, especially around Irvine and Newport, that huge entire towers are empty. They emptied the first few weeks of COVID in March and April of 2020, and today they are just ghost towns. There is literally nothing there. Same thing in Northern California. You can go out, if you want to see the state of the insurance industry, drive out US 50 towards Lake Tahoe around El Dorado Hills. There are two giant office buildings on each side of the freeway that are owned by large insurance companies. They both have zero occupancy now. They had thousands of employees in these areas previously. So people are not going to go back to office buildings. There's no reason to. If you can work from home, that's always becoming the preferred method now. You'll read things in the news, that Elon Musk or Facebook ordered their people to come back to work. They've since backed off of that stuff. It's just not a realistic proposal. So what are we going to do as a society with all these extra office buildings? Well, the trend has been to try and convert some of them to housing. We're short on housing, we're long on office buildings. The problem is very few of these buildings, I shouldn't say none, but a minimal amount of these buildings have the ability to be converted to a living situation. And a couple of reasons. One, they're not set up to plumb properly. In other words, you can't have the water that you need and that kind of thing. They're not done properly for electricity. They're configured wrong. And the biggest problem that most people are running across today is there are not enough windows per housing unit in a large skyscraper to qualify as housing. It doesn't meet any of the requirements for any of the government-sponsored finance program, FHA and things like that. You literally just don't have enough window space. And you can't fix that. There is no fixing that kind of thing. It's not like you can knock out all the walls and make 100% windows around there. That still wouldn't be enough. There's not enough windows. In many cases, there's not enough parking. Parking was designed for a certain number of people per 1,000 square feet. Then when you put housing in there, a lot of these tend to be smaller units and they'll require a more dense vehicle count. And so there's just not enough to do that. Nonetheless, there are some cities that are leading the charge in converting downtown office buildings to residences. And surprisingly, the number one in the United States is Columbus, Ohio. I think they've got 16 buildings right now that are in various stages of, or have been completed, conversion from office to housing. But I would suspect that most of those are probably old style buildings that tend to lend themselves more towards a single family housing deal. Nonetheless, I'll give you another example. City of San Francisco, there's a building on Market Street that sold in 2019, so a little over 3 years ago. It had, I think, 12 offers when it went for sale, and it sold for $397,000, about $400,000. Today, that property is unoccupied, zero occupancy, and is on the market for $155 million. So it went from $400 million down to $155 million. That's a 60% drop in value, and there are zero offers on that thing today. So nobody wants an office building. I would stay away from it. The next up on my hit list would be things like small strip malls. In some cases, especially for retail, they can be populated or rented up. But if I was a landlord or a real estate investment trust that focused on any type of commercial, I'd be very wary. It is not a good chance to get a good return on investment. It's not like housing. There's always a demand for housing because people would always prefer to live under a roof than out in the rain. The office building, not so much. Commercial, non-residential type things, not so much. If you want to diversify, in my opinion, out of single family houses, you could look at very specialty commercial things like mobile home parks, storage units, farm properties, and a few other things that we'll talk about in an episode we're going to do next week about good commercial investments. But I'd be very, very careful. And anything commercial, as always, you can hit us up on these calls, and we'll be glad to let you know what we think about it. But my number one red, Ghostbusters stay away sign is commercial office buildings. All right, that's it for news you can use today.